In the spring of 2011, when I was 27 and getting uncomfortably close to the big 3-0, I completely took my life apart within the space of a few months. Not a life that I had built for myself so far, but one that I had stumbled through on autopilot. Let me backtrack a bit. I grew up as the daughter of a fearless, progressive mother in a very conservative country. I was eager to please and eager to overachieve. I got straight A's in school. I landed a 9-to-5 job at a multinational corporation straight out of university. And at 23, I married the first man that I had a serious relationship with. And then, at 27, I had what you could probably call a quarter-life crisis. Now, I say probably, not because I wasn't at the quarter-life mark. I was. But because I didn't know it at the time, but I was going through a crisis of faith in every possible way. I did what I was not supposed to do. I fell in love with someone while I was still married. And while I am not proud of breaking up my marriage, this one single, unrewindable act set in motion a snowball effect that affected the rest of my life. I'm Nausheen. I am a filmmaker. I am a corporate strategist and an improv performer and coach. There is a maxim that we often use in improv. If this is true, then what else is true? This allows the improv performer on stage to build a world based on certain beliefs and principles. It's like taking Lego blocks of beliefs and putting them on top of each other to build a structure. If this is true, then what else is true? If I'm a princess, perhaps I have a castle. Well, at this point in my life, I started asking myself the opposite question. I had already broken the sacred rules of marriage, and at the time, believed them not to be true. So I started asking myself, if this is false, then what else is false? It was like pulling at a thread that started unraveling my entire belief system. I started examining and breaking down every single thing I had believed about my life so far. Within the space of a few months, I had quit not just my marriage, but also my cushy corporate job and my religious belief system to travel around the continent. And this is when I started realizing that what I had built so far in life was more like a house of cards than a sturdy Lego structure. If you've ever seen the iconic movie Labyrinth, you might remember there is a junk lady in there. This junk lady collects objects and carries them with her on her back. And over time, the weight of all these objects weighs her down more and more. And this is how I felt. Over the course of my life, I had collected different beliefs about myself and the world around me. Beliefs like, I need to have a secure job. I need a man to feel fulfilled. And I must never talk about my period because, oh my God, period. These beliefs were weighing me down. But I had also stumbled upon a paradox. Even though I was carrying these beliefs, these heavy beliefs with me all the time, my attachment to them was actually quite fragile. I realized that I could let go of them quite easily. One by one, I cut off the strings, and I felt myself like a balloon just floating up, up, and away. I realized that the reason why I could so easily let go of things that I had believed in for 27 years was because I was not resonating with them. I simply wasn't vibrating at the same frequency. And when I started stripping away layer after layer of belief, some interesting things started happening. First, I felt vulnerable. Really, really vulnerable. I realized there is actually a very practical benefit to believing in the same things as the people around you. People respect you if you believe in the same things that they do. These are generally things that people consider positive, contributing to a well-functioning society. So if you break away from that system, you force people to adjust the mental labels that they have for you. She's no longer working, so what is she doing? Oh, she's no longer married, divorced at 27, poor thing. But more than feeling vulnerable to other people's judgments, I also felt vulnerable internally. French philosopher Michel Foucault talks about how one's ecosystem of beliefs and values shape the way that we see the world, that we act, that we behave. He calls this a discourse. It also shapes the way that you think. Without an overarching system of beliefs that was guiding me to doing what was right and what was wrong, I was left to figure these things out by myself. The second interesting thing that started happening to me when I started breaking apart these beliefs was that doubting the beliefs took me back to why I started believing certain things in the first place. Now, for sure, I had adopted a lot of these beliefs and values because I was mirroring the world around me. But some of these beliefs were rooted in real trauma. I had started draping a scarf over my chest because I was molested at the age of 11. So for the next 16 years, I believed that I needed to hide away my body behind layers of cloth to feel safe. On a lighter note, I grew up in a family with aunts and uncles who had very strong opinions. We often had dinners with the extended family. There would be a long dinner table with aunts and uncles and cousins and my mom and me. Without fail, each time, an aunt or an uncle would launch into a monologue about all the things that they thought were wrong with the world. The adults would talk, and the children would nod in agreement. I, also being the youngest at this table by far, would open my big mouth and start questioning. And I remember my mother reaching down under the table and gently striking me on the thigh, telling me to shut up. From that point onwards, I started believing that nothing that an older person says can ever be questioned. The third interesting thing that started happening to me when I started peeling away layers after layers of beliefs and values was that I had to force myself to then adopt, find, or create a new system of beliefs. Because my older system of beliefs was like having inherited a closet full of clothes from an older sibling. I never had to think about what to wear. But now, my closet was empty. It was scary and thrilling at the same time. I had no idea what was at the core of my being anymore. So I started experimenting. I talked to people that I would never otherwise have met. I watched films that I would never otherwise have seen. And I truly learned how to enjoy sex for the first time in my life. Breaking my belief system enabled me to declutter my brain and to ask myself the important questions. What do I really, truly believe in? And I had to try to force myself to see the world in an unfettered, unfiltered kind of way and without judgment. I realized that I didn't oppose the idea of beliefs themselves. Beliefs like, this is good, this is bad, don't do that. They allow us to make sense of the world, to feel safe. What I wanted to do was just to deliberately choose what to be attached to and what to question. And I realized as well that so far, the earlier belief system that I had was very limiting for me. It made me put on blinders like a horse and see the world in a very black or white way. It was almost like I had the voice of my middle school teacher, Miss Diana, in my head, telling me to do things because she said so. This was a voice that did not leave room for questioning. So 16 years later, I started asking the questions. All rules must be followed. But aren't rules man-made? Can they not change? This is how we're going to do things because it's how we have always done things. Like, dude, does that not leave any room for innovation? You see that, right? Be a lady. Okay, what does that even mean? You know. Questioning these beliefs, doubting them, made me play the devil's advocate. It made me ask the question, okay, but what if it's not this way? And from the other side of the looking glass, I placed myself in an unfamiliar but ultimately strategic position to really know which side I wanted to be on. When my husband cooks spaghetti, he uses the spaghetti wall test that those of you who cook might be familiar with. He takes a strand of spaghetti and he throws it against a wall. If it doesn't stick, it's not quite done yet. And if it sticks, that's when you know it's good to eat. So, I took my beliefs and I threw them on the proverbial wall of reasoning to see which ones would stick. Monogamy and marriage surprisingly stuck. The idea of dressing myself according to traditional social norms, not so much. But more than anything, the idea of being human and valuing all that is human more than valuing laws imposed by a piece of land or an elder or a faith, that really stuck. As children, we see the world with an unbound curiosity because we have not been limited yet by worldviews. They haven't yet been formed. I truly believe that the power of breaking your beliefs is that you regain some of that unshackled childlike wonder. It was this childlike curiosity that I regained that pushed me to document the lives of people in New York and Karachi. And I was fascinated by how these people lived and worked in their everyday lives. This was something that my earlier belief system did not push me to do, did not push me to get to know people in any significant way. If you can break your beliefs, it will be a giant step, I think, towards building a belief system that is deliberately yours. And you might realize along the way that you don't have to subscribe to every single thing in a particular system of beliefs. You can pick and choose things from different systems. You might even go back to something you used to believe in the past. But this time, it's going to be you choosing the belief instead of the belief system choosing you. Thank you.